Good morning, everybody. Today I am doing a quick video, which is going to be an update on the job search situation. Now that I have my CDL, I have to find a job, which right now in the trucking industry is really crazy because everybody is hiring, and the hardest part is finding a company that essentially has the availability with their insurance to hire a new driver with no experience. I'm finding really that that's the biggest hurdle. So if the company has the type of insurance that allows it, they'll work with you, and they're definitely interested in hiring new drivers. A lot of companies, though, don't have that availability on their insurance, so that's where the requirement of 3, 6, 9, 12 months of experience comes into play. It really comes down to whatever their insurance company requires. So that was interesting to figure out. But I've talked with several recruiters for mega carriers, mostly large carriers, because they're really the only ones who can take on drivers with no experience. So I thought I would share a little bit about who I've talked to, and kind of the feedback that I got from the recruiters that I talked to. Before I started this whole process, I made a list of questions that I wanted to ask, which has been really helpful, and I definitely suggest that you do that. I'll do another video that just has questions that I came up with that I think are really valuable to ask. And it helps to kind of compare the companies equally. If you ask them all kind of the same questions, then you at least have a basis to go off of that is kind of an apples to apples comparison, at least as much as it can be. Each company is a little bit different in how they do their pay rates or benefits, things of that nature, the training. But a lot of them, especially the mega carriers, are very similar. The companies, let's see, I have a notebook, which, see, I actually made a notebook with all the different companies listed that I've talked to. It just helps me stay organized, which with this process has been very helpful. I've talked to Western Express, CFI, Werner, May Trucking, Covenant, and Schneider as far as the trucking companies go. And then I've got 2 local companies that I have talked to, and I will talk about them in a little bit. But as far as the trucking company mega carriers go, you know, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. Everybody has different things that they need out of their first experience. You know, obviously it's nice to find a company that has tuition reimbursement. If you're brand new and just got out of CDL school, it will help to repay that cost. The conditions of that is basically that you paid for it out of pocket, or, you know, basically either cash or took out a loan or whatever, but you paid for it. It wasn't paid for by another company or like the state or anything like that. It came out of your money. And they are also the first employer that you go to directly out of school. So those are generally the requirements. But a lot of these have tuition reimbursement, which is nice. Definitely is a bonus. So for Western Express, basically, as of right now, which today is November 11th, Veterans Day, and I've talked to these all within the last week and a half, so it's current as of that time period. They basically said that for a new driver, they would have a 2-day orientation and 2 weeks of training, which is a little scary for somebody who's brand new, that you, after 2 weeks, you might be just put out in a truck. But I guess I'm sure that they would base it off of your ability. But what they basically told me was the beginning, for somebody brand new, you make roughly about $650 a week during your training period. And then after that, once you are in a truck, you start around 36 cents a mile for your first 30 days. And then it looks like roughly after your 30 days, it goes to 42 cents a mile. And then they top out right now at 56 cents a mile. And they have incremental increases based off of your performance and time roughly every 3 months. And let's see, I guess that was basically, they have about 3,000 miles a week, and about 10 days out, 3 days home is what they're saying for dry van. So that was Western. CFI, so CFI, this was, let's see, got a lot of information here. Roughly kind of the same 2-day orientation, but they do 3 weeks with a trainer. And then your orientation days are $60 a day. And then you make, I believe what they said was 32 cents a mile while you're with your trainer for those 3 weeks. This particular position is an OTR. Average is about 10 days out, 10 days to 2 weeks, and you put in a home time request. One thing that I think is important to note is that when you're talking to recruiters, you definitely need to ask them, what is the time between when you finish your orientation versus being sent out with the trainer? Because some of these companies, you're having to hang out in a hotel for a week before they find you a trainer to go out with. So you need to be prepared for that. You're not just going to have your couple days of orientation and get straight into a truck and be on your way. Most of them, there's some kind of wait, anywhere from two days to, I've heard, up to 2 weeks, but usually it's 4 to 5 days before you get put into a truck with a trainer. And usually they pay you a certain amount to stay in the hotel if you've flown out, which this one would have been in Joplin, Missouri, so obviously I would have to fly there from Washington. You can either go home, and then of course you don't get paid for the wait time, or if you stay at the hotel, they pay you $90 a day to stay there. These guys start out at 38 cents a mile, and then after 6 months go up to 45 cents a mile. But then you don't get another increase until you hit your 2-year mark, and then you go up basically 1 cent a year, which is a little low comparatively from what I'm seeing. Let's see. They do have tuition reimbursement. One bonus with these guys, you get an XM Sirius radio subscription in the truck, and a dedicated truck that you bring home during home time and all of that. So that's that one. Also, these guys all have relatively the same type of benefits: medical, dental, vision. Most of them are a paid portion, so it's going to cost you something to have insurance, but it is available. Werner, it really kind of depends on what they have available in your area at the moment. Most of their terminals and stuff are in the mid to east coast, so west coast isn't quite as populated for Werner. I mean, they do have routes and stuff over here. They run a Starbucks regional account, and then they do also, at least for me right now, I would have to do an OTR if I wasn't interested in the Starbucks account, which it's kind of weird if it's based out of California. California has some different requirements as far as how you get paid. You get paid a mileage amount plus an hourly rate, which is kind of strange. But as far as orientation goes for Werner, they told me that I would go down to Fontana. Orientation is about 5 days. And then 3 to 4 days after orientation to get a trainer. But for Werner, they take you out 3 to 5 weeks with a trainer, and it's performance-based, which I really like that. I think that's a good amount of time. And if you pick it up and you're doing well, you have the ability to get going sooner. But they know it's going to take some time for you to get everything under control and be comfortable. And it makes sense that they would spend more time dedicated to your training for their own sake and your safety and the safety of the equipment and everybody on the road. So I really like the way that they have their training set up. And I've heard a lot of good feedback as far as people who are just getting started really liking the training process with Werner. And for them, they told me right now it's about $725 a week while you're training, so that's good. And then, let's see, for the OTR that they had available for me, it was basically 2 weeks out, 2 days home average, 47 cents a mile, average of about 2,500 miles a week. Let's see, they do offer 401k, which is good. Most of them have some kind of 401k or matching. And the nice thing about Werner is because they do have a lot of different routes and accounts, you do have the ability to change the type of route that you're running with them anytime. Once you get started with them and you're in your own truck, if you really don't like what you're doing, you can put in a request to transfer, which I think is really good. Let's see. May Trucking. I hadn't really heard of May Trucking before. They were one of the more unknown companies. Since I started talking with them, I did a little bit more research, and they are a pretty well-known company out there. A lot of these companies are involved with Women in Trucking Association, I believe is what it is. And I think that's great. I think any company that gets involved with an organization that is focused on women in this industry is a good move, because there's a lot of untapped potential there, and there's a lot of women that are looking to get into something like this. And so having any type of support and being engaged with that community, I think, is beneficial for these companies. Let's see. So the thing with May Trucking is they had a couple different routes, either the lower 48 or the western 11. The OTR lower 48, basically you're 3 or 4 weeks out at a time, which is a lot, especially to begin with. Unless that's what you're really looking for when you get into this, is to get out on the road and do some traveling. That's a lot to take on when you first start. The Western 11, which is really more of what I would be looking for if I was doing dry van type stuff. I would like to try to stay on the western coast-ish. So for them, let's see. That is basically 2 to 3 weeks out. Your home time is essentially equal to 1 day per week out. So then it's up to you to kind of request to get back home. They do also have tuition reimbursement. And let's see. For me, my orientation would be in Brooks, Oregon, which is a 5-day orientation. And basically the way that they work is your first day, you have to come down and do 3 different tests: a road test, a skills test, and a drug test. You're not paid for your first day, and yet you have to pass all 3 of those tests. Otherwise, you do not continue on into orientation. So once you are, through that first day, if you pass all of that, then you can go into the orientation, which I think they told me was paid at like I have written down here $14 a day, which seems pretty low, but that's what I wrote down. So essentially you would go through that orientation, and then it says a few days with a mentor, that you would be paid $115 a day while you're with the mentor. And then they put you in a truck, I guess, based off of whether they feel you're ready or not. It wasn't real definitive as far as how much training they really give you. It's just kind of like, well, come down and do the orientation, go through that, and we'll see where you're at, and then go from there. So that would leave me a little concerned. So they also have kind of a different way of doing pay. So to start out with, you're making 41 cents a mile, but you have $120 guaranteed daily pay for your first 3 months. And so the way that it works is, in a calendar month, they take all of the miles that you drive and reconcile that against what your rate per mile is, and then they subtract the daily guaranteed pay. And so the daily guaranteed pay, you get paid once a week, and whatever that amount is at that per time, which it changes based off of how long you've been there. At 3 months, it's $125 a day. At 6 months, it goes to $130 a day. So essentially, they take however much you made at your per mile rate for the month, and they subtract what they've already paid you for your guarantee pay. And if it's more, then you get the balance once a month. And if it's less, then nothing happens because you have a guaranteed pay rate. So, I mean, it's nice because then at least you know exactly a minimum you're going to make. But it also kind of would be a little hard to keep track of, especially since it's done on a whole month basis. You would have to really keep track of all your miles. They do offer safety bonuses based off of the amount of miles that you drive. Let's see, I think that's a monthly thing. And then your rates go up a little bit at your 3 month mark, 6 month mark. 1 year, you get up to 55 cents a mile. Their cap right now is 60 cents a mile. Their benefits are not available until after 6 months of employment, though. So keep that in mind. And then the other thing that I found was a little bit different with these guys. They do have like passenger and pet rider, but so there's a fee for the passenger. They have to be 18 and over, and you have to pay a $25 a month insurance to add them. But as far as having a pet, you have to pay a $650 deposit in order to have a pet in your truck with you, and $150 of that is non-refundable. So I guess they're just worried about your pet, making a mess and destroying the truck. So anyway, keep that in mind. That's that for May Trucking. They're the only ones that I found that did that guaranteed pay and then reconcile it with your monthly mileage. That was really different for them. Covenant Transport, I didn't get a whole lot of information. I didn't really write a whole lot down. One of the first things that the recruiter told me when I started talking to her is that as a new driver, I would be required to spend my first 120 days on a team. And I'm just really not interested in doing that. I don't want to be teamed up with somebody I don't know. I don't want to be stuck out on the road with somebody I don't know. If you have somebody that you're willing to do teams with, it might be a good option. Like I said, I didn't really write down a whole lot of information because that threw me off at the very get-go. So I just kind of stopped writing at that point. So I don't really have a whole lot of information on Covenant other than the fact that they've followed up with me several times to get me to kind of fill out the application and move forward with them. But I'm just not interested in the whole team requirement that they have. And then there's Schneider. I kind of held off on contacting Schneider just because I feel like a lot of new drivers go to Schneider. Not that that's a bad thing. I just wanted to see what else was out there before I talked to them. And with Schneider, it really comes down to what's available in your specific area, because there was one position that I got a notification on, which you can sign up at schneiderjobs.com, which is really helpful because you get text when a new job is posted. You can go on there and get a lot of information about anything that's open in your area, which is nice. But there was an intermodal position that came open that I was interested in because it was more local. And so I got a hold of them, and so one of the requirements of the position is that you live within 40 miles of Kent, which, based off of where I live, I'm actually 50 miles, right about 50 miles away from Kent. And they have a 10-mile variance, I guess. And so I'm outside of that, so I don't qualify to apply for that position, which I think is kind of crappy because, I mean, if I want to drive 50 miles to get to work every day, that should be my prerogative, not really a restriction against why I could or couldn't do a job. But anyway, that's one of their requirements. So that position was not available for me, which I thought was kind of yucky because that was the one I was really more interested in. They do have some more local stuff, a lot of dry van, and then they do have the Regional Western 11. Schneider does also offer tuition reimbursement. And the mileage total, I mean, the mileage pay is really based off of what position it is. And you need to talk to them about, home time and the average miles per week, and whether or not it's got accessorial pay, which is, like your layover, detention, breakdown pay, those types of things. I guess there really wasn't a whole lot available that they had for me that I was really all that interested in. Now, I think because I live in the north part of Western Washington, it actually reduces a lot of availability because most of our industrial commercial areas are down south. They're in south of Seattle. So it's a good drive, if you're going to be down in the Auburn area or Fife or Kent or Tacoma, those types of areas. It's quite a ways away from my house. So a lot of jobs are down there. If you live down in the south end, you have a lot more opportunity for things that are local to your area. So needless to say, Schneider wasn't really the option for me at this point. Okay, so I told you that there were 2 local companies that I am talking to as well. So the first company that I spoke to is called MP Environmental, And basically what they are a hazardous waste transport company. And they go all over. They have several different facilities throughout the U.S. Headquarters is down in Bakersfield, California, I believe. But there is a yard here in Everett, and then a yard, I believe, over in Eastern Washington. I think it's Spokane or some Pasco, I believe. They basically, like I said, they do environmental waste transport. So the nice thing about MP Environmental is you're paid hourly with these guys regardless of what you're doing. So you have to be willing to deal with hazmat, though. So if you have your hazmat endorsement and you're willing to work, it's a good opportunity. There's a lot of over-the-road driving, out for 1 to 2, sometimes 3 weeks. There's also local stuff. So, and it just varies on a day-to-day basis. The people have been really nice, very helpful for me, and I am in the interview process with them at this point. I have put in my application and am going through, it's quite an extensive application process. You have to have a background check. You need to have your hazmat card. You do need a TWIC card as well. Plus, they do a full background check, and drug test and physical and drive test. And so there's a lot involved. And it's understandable because this is a critical position. So if it's something that you're interested in and you have a clean background, it's definitely a good option. Pay can vary based off of experience, and the more the longer you work there, the more you make. Okay, so there's that one, and then the other company is Lee and Eastie's Tank Line. So they are a fuel transport company based out of Seattle, and I went and interviewed with them. They actually came up to my driving school while I was there and talked with us, and I was really interested in them from the get-go because I talked to them at a job fair before I ever started school, which really got me interested in doing tank work. So again, this is hazmat because it's fuel transport, but that's why I went and got my hazmat card and got the certification. So I am also in the interview process with Lee and Eastie's. They are also primarily hourly, unless you are doing a long haul run, but their runs are local for the most part, so that's a huge bonus for me and my family. I think it would be great to have something to start out with that I'm local and can be home most nights. No guarantee necessarily how long the day will be, but at some point I will be able to get home. There might be occasions where I might have to stay out for a night, but for the most part it would be home. At the beginning of this process, it's hard to really think about just being gone. You're not used to being gone, and your family's not used to you being gone. And I'm finding, that it's not just impacting me. I mean, I knew it wasn't just going to impact me. I knew it was going to impact my entire family. And it's really important that your family is on board with whatever you're doing, because this is going to affect them too. So no matter what you end up deciding to do, make sure that your family is on board. If you're married, have that conversation with your husband, or your wife. Make sure that you guys have some open communication, because it's not worth causing trouble in your life make sure that no matter what you decide to do, that you talk to your husband or wife, because it's not worth having trouble in your life for a job. Search yourself and find out what's important to you and what's important to your family and your future and your goals, and stay true to that, because there are so many different options out here and so many different possibilities that it can be overwhelming to try and figure this out at the get-go. I mean, you always have the opportunity to do something different in the future. Get your experience doing something that is going to work for you and your family, and then see where that goes. See where your future takes you, and you never know. But no matter what, make sure that you're making a decision that's right for you and your family. Don't just take the first thing that comes out there because you're worried that some place isn't going to offer you a position, or because you don't have experience, that you're limited. There's a lot out there for people who don't have experience, because they need us. They need drivers critically bad right now. So a lot of places are bending what they are used to because they know they're going to have to. The driver shortage is real, and they're going to have to work with new drivers. So anyway, I am here getting ready to take a drug test for one of the companies I am applying to. That's part of the hiring process. So here I go. I'm going to go get that done, get it out of the way, and I will try to get the video up here shortly about the questions that I asked all of these companies. That way it's available to anybody who is looking to make their own list. Just some suggestions of things that I thought were important to ask each of these companies as I talk to them. All right, I hope you guys all have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye. So I just got done going in and applying for my TWIC card, which is a Transportation Workers Identification Certification, I believe. Is what it stands for. But basically, it's a government card that allows you access to like maritime ports, airports, things of that nature. They do background check, fingerprinting, all of that good stuff, just to verify you are who you say you are, and that there's no, ill intentions, and at least that they can tell from your background. So my biggest concern about the TWIC card process, though, is it's exactly the same as what you go through for your hazmat endorsement. So essentially, they're just charging you twice for doing the same thing. They told me it's a different background check, but I don't understand what the difference would be. But regardless, I think it's just the government not talking to one another. So I get to pay for my hazmat endorsement, and then I get to pay for my TWIC card. But anyway, it doesn't matter. You have to have them. If you want to work in the industry and have access to any of the ports or airports, things like that, you have to have them. So anyway, that is done now. So they will mail me that card once they complete everything, and I will be legal to have access to airports and stuff, which I will need. Anyway, that's it for now. I will check back in a little bit.